2 months ago, I had sex with my best friend unexpectedly on impulse. I fled in panic. Later, I felt unwell and went to the hospital for a checkup. Report result: early pregnancy. I angrily asked don't you have the habit of wearing a condom? As soon as the inspection report comes out, I practically ran to the bathroom and looked down at myself. Yes, there is one. I confirmed the information in the report word for word without believing it.
Name: Emile.
Gender: male, 19 years old. Early pregnancy is about 8 weeks. Has the world finally gone mad? I left the hospital in a daze, with the doctor's words echoing in my ears. You have an abnormally developed uterus-like organ in your body cavity, and there are very thin soft tubes between the cervix and intestines. The fetus is already formed at 8 weeks. It cannot be aborted with medicine. The only way is to remove the organ through laparotomy. The operation is difficult and expensive. Since it requires laparotomy, it is better to remove it during delivery. You can go back and discuss it with your boyfriend and family before making a decision. After all, it's just a little life. The cause of the incident was that I had been suffering from dizziness, fatigue, nausea, vomiting, and loss of appetite recently, so I came to the hospital for a checkup. The HCG level was found to be too high. The doctor frowned and ordered a series of tests. No one expected she was pregnant. What's his face appeared in my mind, and I angrily sent a message asking, "Don't you have the habit of wearing a condom?" The other party replied immediately. Wear a condom? Who's wearing a condom? It really made me laugh. You're pulling up your pants and refusing to admit it, right? I realized it belatedly when I finished typing a short essay and was about to send it. Remembers nothing about that night. Cursing quietly in my heart, I deleted the essay and replied with 4 words. I sent it to the wrong person. I exited the interface in annoyance and didn't read his message again. What the hell is this? This happened 2 months ago. Was drunk outside and kept asking me to pick him up. As soon as he entered the box, he saw me, stood up and staggered over to me. He put his head on my shoulder, his hot breath hitting my eardrums, and complained, "Why did you come just now? I've been waiting for you for a long time." I rubbed my itchy ears, pushed his head away in disgust, and said unhappily, "Just say it, stay away." Chuckled, stretched out his arm around me, and pressed his whole body on me unceremoniously. His body temperature was frighteningly hot through the thin cloth, and he greeted me. The boy who just sat next to looked at me unwillingly. I frowned and helped to leave. "How many dishes did you drink to such an extent?" Said nothing. After walking a distance, suddenly stopped and said, "Give me your coat." "No, I just bought it and I'm wearing it for the first time today." "Why are you still touching me?" He pressed my head down with his hands and caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye. I was stunned for a few seconds. She quickly looked around, took off her coat and tied it around his waist, then asked in a low voice, "What's wrong with you in public?" Watt's face darkened and he said, "Someone must have planted something on him." I wanted to find a nearby hotel for him to take care of it, but refused to agree and insisted on going back to his rental house. I tooted, took out my phone to call a taxi, glanced at him and asked, "It's a 20-minute drive, are you okay?" Remained calm. I have always had good stamina. Something dirty got into my ear. When he got off the car, didn't look well. His face was red, his eyes were a little dazed, his whole body was tense, and he felt terribly hot. When we got to the door of the unit, I asked "Where's the phone?" The other party was a little slow to react and responded, "Pants pocket." I reached out to touch it, and suddenly a low groan came from above my head. It made my head numb. "Depend on. Don't touch it, it's in your right pocket." What a bad guy who complains first. My face turned red as I quickly took out my phone to scan the door and went in, then helped the person upstairs. Once inside, staggered to the bathroom. "Wait, give me back my coat." As I ran after him, the bathroom door slammed shut and almost hit my nose. Then the sound of splashing water was heard inside. I was about to leave, cursing, when suddenly there was a noise from inside. He walked over quickly, knocked on the door and asked, "What's? How are you?" There was only the sound of water inside. I hesitated for a moment, and my mind involuntarily recalled the news about someone who fell while showering and became paralyzed, and I turned the doorknob. The person inside turned around and looked at me. The water hit his firm pectoral muscles, slid down his well-defined abdominal muscles to his mermaid line, and soaked the familiar coat at his crotch. My eyelids twitched and my ears and face felt uncontrollably hot. My coat. Just as I was about to turn around and leave, I heard him say pitifully, "Emile, can you help me? Please." The voice is low and hoarse, and particularly alluring. Inexplicably, I asked, "How can I help?" Watts walked up to me with a gloomy look in his eyes, took my hand and stretched it down along my abdominal muscles, staring at me without blinking. I lowered my head in confusion, my brain going blank from the visual stimulation. He pulled his hand back as if he had been electrocuted, but Watts forced it back. My memory is all messed up afterwards. The alarm clock rang. I closed my eyes and fumbled to turn it off. I just felt particularly tired today, so I turned over and went back to sleep. I slowly felt a light breath hitting my face. I opened my eyes suddenly and saw Watts close to me. He was shirtless, with broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and perfect muscle definition. I was so scared that I jumped up from the bed immediately. When I moved, my whole body hurt, especially my coccyx. I took a deep breath, and the memories of last night that were not suitable for children came back to me. Even if you haven't eaten pork, you have seen pigs run. Grass. Staring at Watts' sleeping face, feeling angry. The dog man seduced me. We have to leave quickly before anyone wakes up. I picked up the clothes scattered on the ground and put them on with great pain. He limped off and returned to the dorm, cursing Watts as he showered. There are a lot of teeth marks on his body. He's really a dog. After taking a quick shower, I lay down on the bed tiredly and fell asleep in a daze. When I woke up again, I saw Watts playing games with his roommate Ramon. Seeing how refreshed he looked, I thought about myself. I'm so fucking angry. I reluctantly got out of bed. Watts heard the noise and came over. "You're awake. Why do you look so bad?" He reached out and touched my forehead. "You actually have the nerve to ask." I slapped his hand away and glared at him fiercely, "Stop touching me and get out of the way." When the voice came out, even I was stunned. Watts asked jokingly, "What did you do last night to make your voice so hoarse?" I was stunned. He acted like he had forgotten what happened yesterday. Forget it. To avoid killing people. I was too lazy to pay attention to him and went to the bathroom. When I came out, he was gone. Ramon pointed to something on the table. "Watts gave it to you. A brand new jacket with tags on that is exactly the same as the previous one." I took a glance, and a vivid image flashed through my mind. My throat was a little dry, so I poured myself a glass of water and almost passed out as soon as I sat down. After a long while, I slowly adjusted my posture and tried to adapt. Seeing this, Ramon asked quietly, "Are you?" I was shocked. "Ramon, hemorrhoids." I nodded. Because other than this reason, I don't know how to explain to him why things turned out like this overnight. I knew Watts was superior, but I never thought that one day I would use it on myself. Just thinking about it now makes me shudder. Watts happened to come back with a bag of things. "Hey, thank you for taking me home yesterday." The bag contains cold medicine, throat lozenges, etc. I couldn't help but ask, "Do you remember what happened last night?" Watts raised his eyebrows and asked me jokingly, "I can't be sleeping with you, right?" I was so scared that I almost jumped up, my face flushed, and I cursed guiltily. "Watts, are you crazy? How can you make such a joke?" Watts patted his chest as if he was relieved and said, "I told you, after all, I'm not interested in straight men." I sneered, feeling a little unhappy for some reason. "That wasn't how you behaved in bed yesterday." I said indifferently, "You are quite principled then. Anything else?" Question mark. "You disturbed my rest. Remember to take your medicine." Watts has never hidden her sexuality. When he just started college, a girl confessed her love to him, but he was told that her gender was not suitable. As a result, Watts' name became one of the hottest topics on campus overnight, and the forum became crowded with comments, most of which were negative. When I returned to the dormitory that day, Dawson and Ramon from the next room were playing games together. Dawson said as he operated, "There's a guy in our school who came out publicly." Ramon asked casually, "Who is it?" "Freshman Watts." I was stunned. I heard him still saying, "Men being together is disgusting, they must be perverted. And a man has long hair, so sissy." A boy was chattering. Annoying. I put down the food I brought. Dawson looked up and asked, "Emile, did you bring my green pepper and shredded pork rice?" I lied with my eyes wide open, "I didn't bring it." He stared blankly at the 3 dishes on the table, one of which was shredded pork with green peppers. "Isn't this it?" In front of him, I dumped the bowl into the trash can with my backhand. "Oh, it's gone now. If you really want to eat it, you can pick it up from the trash can." Dawson was stunned and his face turned red. "Fuck? Emile, are you fucking sick?" I ignored him and sat down to eat. Ramon quickly tried to smooth things over. Dawson cursed a few times and walked away angrily. Ramon came over and asked, "What happened between you and Dawson?" "Nothing, I just suddenly became annoyed with him." "Ramon?" I opened the campus forum and the first thing I saw was a photo of Watts. His eyes and eyebrows were as passionate and unrestrained as when he was in high school. At that time, I hated him very much. Because both of my self-reflections in life are related to him. That day, I saw a couple kissing and one of them was Watts. He is well known and extremely popular in school. No matter what the game was, as long as they were facing Watts, the girls would switch sides on the spot and cheer for him with all their hearts, regardless of the life and death of their own class. When he saw that the person kissing him was not a girl, but a boy of the same sex as him, I was so shocked that I forgot to leave immediately. Watts noticed and raised his eyebrows. "What are you looking at? Didn't you see anyone kissing?" My face suddenly felt hot and I ran away in embarrassment. After running for some distance, I suddenly came back to my senses. They are kissing and dating, which is against school rules. Why should I run away? The impact of that scene caused me to be absent-minded in class afterwards. After school, I saw Watts waiting at the door. He called me to go to a small corner. He told me to watch my mouth and not talk nonsense, otherwise he would make things difficult for me. His attitude was very arrogant. Being threatened like this, I felt unhappy and couldn't help but retort, "Do you think I want to see 2 men kissing? Isn't that disgusting?" Watts' face instantly turned pale and he raised his fist at me. "Say that again." Threatened me and wanted to beat me. I got angry. "What? You were kissing a guy in the woods? You were a lesbian?" The next second Watts' fist came down. Heavy and painful. I fought back without giving in. The 2 wrestled with each other, unable to separate, and went to the teacher to make a scene. In the office, Watts and I stood there with bruised faces. The teacher turned around and asked me, "Tell me first, why did you fight?" Watts became visibly nervous and stared at me without blinking, his eyes fierce, sending a signal. "If you dare to say that, you're done." Because I paused deliberately and saw Watts shaking uncontrollably. It's both pitiful and funny. Me, because he doesn't like me. The teacher frowned and turned to ask Watts silently. He was stunned for a few seconds, then blurted out, "Yes. I don't like him." The teacher asked, "What's the reason?" Watts paused for a moment and said, "Because he always gets first place in the class, it's annoying to see him." The teacher was so angry that he sneered, "You have poor grades, but you can't stand others doing well?" Watts blushed. He is an art student and his academic performance is not very good. I curled my lips. What a lame excuse. After some education, they were ordered to write a self-criticism of no less than 2,000 words. I don't agree with this. It was clearly Watts who started the fight first, so why should I write a self-criticism together with him and even read it on the flag-raising platform in front of the whole school? It's embarrassing just thinking about it. It was the greatest humiliation in my 17 years of life. After leaving the office, I stared at Watts who was walking in front of me, and I was so angry that my teeth were itching. It took me 2 days to write the self-review, cursing Watts in my mind as I wrote it. Suddenly someone said, Watts' parents were called. I turned around and saw his annoying face downstairs, following his mother with my head down. I thought with glee, evil will be punished. I heard again, being homosexual, isn't that a mental disorder? Can't you call the parents? I blinked and looked at the person who had spoken. What gay? It spread all over the school that Watts is a pervert who likes men. The other party opened the post and showed it to me while speaking. My head buzzed and I read the reply line by line. What we said that day was heard and posted online. When I thought about the fact that I might be held responsible for this, my legs moved unconsciously. Someone called me. Emile, the bell rang. Where are you going? Send it for review. I ran out of the classroom and headed straight for the office. Through the thin door, I heard a female voice saying, "My son can't be gay. He's a normal person. Watts, tell the teacher and your mother that you're not gay." Mom, tell them you are a normal person, not a homosexual. After a moment of silence, the sound of crisp applause was heard. Watts, say something. After a long time, the office door opened and I saw them coming out. He gave me a cold look, one of his cheeks swollen. I opened my mouth. He turned away woodenly. The teacher looked at me in surprise. Emile, what do you want? Send it for review. She shook out the paper. Let me see. I casually asked, Teacher, why was Watts called as a parent? Teacher, fighting. Hey, stop asking questions. The self-review you wrote is okay. This won't happen again. She put the review away. At the flag-raising ceremony on Monday, neither Watts nor I went up to read the self-review. He has taken leave. I am considering it as my first offense. But I can't be happy for some reason. Passing by class 3, I subconsciously looked at the empty desks in the last row. Day after day. It becomes a habit after doing it many times. One day after school, I was on duty and left late. When I passed by the door of class 3, I saw a man doing something sneaky at Watts' desk. I walked over calmly. I saw that the table was completely unrecognizable. Words like pervert, homosexual, die, etc. were carved and written on it. I took out my cell phone and took a picture of the man. There was a crisp sound. The girl looked at me in panic. I said expressionlessly, vandalism. The girl stammered, I didn't. I just wanted to clean these up. I took a closer look and said, sorry. The girl lowered her eyes, touched the scratch on it, and said, if it wasn't for me, he wouldn't be like this. I should be the one to say sorry. I frowned and asked, did you post the comment? The girl didn't say anything. After a while, she seemed to have been holding it in for a long time, and said in a tearful voice, I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I didn't think things would turn out like this. I followed the post anonymously, and as a result, many people came to scold me and question me, so I just wanted to prove that I wasn't lying. Then someone deliberately used homosexuality to disgust Watts. He beat the man in a rage. The matter became a big deal and the parents were called in. If you want to apologize, just say it in person. The girl sobbed and said, I don't dare to do it alone. Can you come with me? I wanted to refuse, but she was crying so sadly. The next day after school I saw her at the classroom door. The girl's name is Greer, and she is a fan of Watts' fan club. I'll go ask the teacher for the address first. Greer shook his head and said shyly, I know where he lives. I've followed him a few times. She found the Watts house with ease. I raised my hand and knocked on the door, but no one opened it. Just as I was about to leave, I heard the sound of a lock being unlocked from behind. The door opposite opened, and the other party, carrying a bag of garbage, glanced at us and asked, Who are you looking for? Looking for Watts. Aunt. He was sent to school by his mother. What school? The aunt opened up immediately. The X school. The doctors there are amazing, whether it's internet addiction, not liking to study, being disobedient, homosexuality, etc. They can cure them all, and the children who come out are completely different from before, well-behaved and obedient. I frowned. It was the first time I heard of such an organization. The aunt called her daughter over and said proudly, My daughter Megan graduated from the X school. She used to only know how to play games and was rebellious, but now she is a good girl. She ranked in the top 10 in the exam last month. Megan, who was standing next to her, shuddered as if she was suffering from stress when she heard the word, the ex-school, with fear in her eyes. The aunt sighed. Yulia is also a poor person. Her husband passed away early, and she has a homosexual son. He was locked up at home for a few days, but he didn't change. I advised her to go to the ex-school to try. Megan took the garbage bag from her aunt and said softly, "Mom, I'm going to take out the garbage." Auntie smiled and said to us, "When Watts graduates from school, he will definitely become a normal person like Megan." Normal person? It sent chills down my spine. After saying goodbye to his aunt, Greer rubbed his arms and said, "What kind of horror story is this? That girl is so gloomy and weird." I happened to meet Megan, who was coming towards me after throwing out the trash. Greer shut up guiltily. I stepped forward and asked, "Can you tell us about the ex-school?" "The ex-school reshapes me into a new me." Megan raised the corners of her mouth, and the muscles on her face were trembling. It was as if she had recited this sentence countless times and it had become a conditioned reflex. This time Greer and I both realized something was wrong. After saying that, she turned and ran, and Greer grabbed her in a hurry. Megan's bracelet was torn off, revealing new and old wounds on her wrist. Greer gasped. Megan turned pale and hid her injured hand behind her back. I immediately said, "Your wrist is bleeding, let's go call your mom." Megan shook her head desperately and begged, "No, don't tell my mom. I don't want to go to that place again. I've tried so hard to be normal." She refused to go to the clinic, so I bought some medicine and bandaged her. Megan was silent the entire time, not even frowning as she applied the medicine. When they separated, she said, "The ex-school is for curing diseases, making people normal. Internet addiction is a disease, homosexuality is a disease, disobedience is a disease." After hearing this, Greer angrily said, "I'm going to call the police and have them arrested." Megan hurriedly grabbed her and shook her head. "No. They have the video." "What video?" Facing Megan's silence, the answer was obvious. Greer burst into tears and yelled, "A bunch of beasts." She hugged Megan and cried. Megan's eyes became wet, and she went from silently crying to bursting into tears. On the way back, Greer's eyes were swollen and he asked me, "I feel bad when I think about my idol being tortured. Let's call the police and arrest them." "No evidence." Greer wilted for a moment, then said, "Then I'll sneak in and collect evidence. This incident started with me." "No, it's too dangerous." Greer was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. "This doesn't work, that doesn't work, what should I do?" After a moment of silence, I said, "I'll go, you meet me outside." "But?" "No buts. Make a good plan." I looked up at the big words, "the ex-school," and let out a deep breath. I really owe you this." The phone rang, and Greer's excited voice came from the other end. "Emile, Megan, give me a document. There's evidence in it. I've called the police." The sound of sirens came from far away, and a group of uniformed police officers came down. I saw Watts in the crowd and turned away. More than a month later, Watts came to school to attend classes. Greer was the happiest, but she didn't dare to apologize and she was mentally preparing herself every day. When I passed by their class, I looked over out of habit, and our eyes met in midair. I looked away as if nothing had happened. Watts has changed from being passionate and unrestrained to being silent and quiet. She is always alone and never sees her boyfriend. One day, I saw Watts with a wound on his face. It was observed that the injury occurred after school. I followed them quietly and finally saw the group that bullied Watts on the third day. I turned on the video on my phone and they found me. I wanted to put away my phone and walk away as if nothing had happened, but I was quickly stopped. The next day, people lined up in the office, all with bruised faces and noses. The teacher looked like he had a headache. I took out my phone to play the video and said, "Teacher, they are the ones who bullied us." The rest of the people stared at me, angry but not daring to say anything. When I left the office, I was happy to receive a 1,000-word self-criticism. The first time is new, the second time is familiar. Rumors started spreading that the man kissing Watts was me. I don't give a shit about that. Rumors stop at the Y's. Obviously Greer is not like that. Congratulations, may you have a long and happy marriage. I kowtow to you first. Time flies in the second semester of senior year, and the college entrance examination is here in a blink of an eye. On the last day, Watts found me and asked to meet me on the school rooftop. My eyelids twitched and all kinds of bad images flashed through my mind. On the last day, the teacher mopped the hall reluctantly. I rushed to the rooftop and saw Watts sitting on the fence, as if a gust of wind could take him away. The tight string in my brain broke. I rushed over and hugged him tightly, my voice shaking like crazy as I cursed, "Watts, are you fucking sick?" He was stunned and replied with a smile, "Yeah, homosexual." I was slightly startled and said dryly, "I'm sorry. I have learned about this group. Homosexuality is not a disease. There is nothing wrong with liking people of the same sex. Love knows no gender." He was stunned for a while, then suddenly asked, "Emile, do you like me?" You didn't clarify the relationship between you and me. Every time you looked at me, you walked away as if nothing had happened. You quietly accompanied me home and reported the people who bullied me. Greer said that you also went to Restart Academy. In fact, I saw you that day." Watts snorted and said deliberately, "Emile, your heart is beating so fast." I pushed him away angrily and said seriously, "Sorry, I don't like boys." Watts looked at me for a long time and raised his eyebrows. "I'm just kidding. I'm not interested in straight men. Otherwise, I'll be struck by lightning." "That's good to know. Emile, which university are you going to?" "Tisama, what about you?" My eyes fell on his right hand, where there was a hideous scar. "Have no idea." "Oh, can't you encourage me a little? I'll wait for you at T University." I performed well in the college entrance examination and was admitted to T University as I wished. Watts chose to repeat the year, took my notes and textbooks, and disappeared. 7. As soon as I got back to the dormitory, I saw Watts standing at the door. "Emile, please explain yourself clearly." I said I sent it to the wrong person. Watts's face became even uglier, and he asked in a tone of accusation, "Who did you originally want to send it to? It was a man, right?" I don't have the energy to argue with him. I spent the whole day at the hospital getting checked out today, and I'm tired and hungry. I stepped over him and he grabbed me and pressed me against the wardrobe. Watts wouldn't let me go and demanded an answer. I looked up at him, unable to suppress my anger. "Yes. I slept with a man. Are you satisfied?" Watts' eyes turned red, and he asked through gritted teeth, "Emile, didn't you say you were straight?" I hissed, drowning in self-doubt. Watts lowered his head suddenly, which scared me so much that I slapped him in the face. It is particularly crisp in the quiet dormitory. He tilted his head, and his whole body seemed to be breaking into pieces. I felt a little guilty. "I'm sorry." As I looked on in confusion, Watts left with a hurt look on his face. He disappeared for several days and there was no news, as if he had evaporated from the face of the earth. Ramon asked me, "Did you have a fight with Watts?" I shook my head. Ramon said to himself, "He used to come to our dormitory every day. I haven't seen him for a while. I'm not used to it. I don't think he's still mad at me for hitting him." But he also apologized. After thinking about it, I took the initiative to send him a message. "Would you like to have dinner together tonight?" "I have something to do." I felt a little disappointed, and then I saw the previous message was withdrawn and turned into "okay." After class, I met Watts. He frowned at me and muttered unhappily, "I haven't seen you for a few days. How come you have lost so much weight? Your chin has become pointy." I touched my chin and said vaguely, "My stomach is upset." In fact, it was because of the severe morning sickness that even eating became a torture. Watts took me to a porridge shop, which was delicious. He was silent for a while, and seemed to want to say something but stopped himself several times. I waited and waited, and finally couldn't wait any longer. "Just say whatever you want to say." "Is he nice to you?" "Who?" "Forget it, let's eat." "I can tell he treats you badly." "He's made me thin because of you." He looked annoyed, muttered under his breath, took my bowl and added another one. I would. After dinner, we slowly walked back to school. I passed by a milk tea shop and saw a long queue. Although I had no interest in milk tea before, I suddenly felt a desire to drink it for no apparent reason. Watts noticed my gaze and asked, "What flavor would you like to drink?" I shook my head embarrassedly. "I'm already here." Turbels Bubba. He smiled and pointed to a place. "Go sit there and wait for me." I nodded. After waiting in line for more than 20 minutes, Watts brought back the milk tea. I took a sip. "It's kind of tasty." Back in the dormitory, Ramon greeted Watts. "Watts, why do you come to our dormitory recently?" My stomach churned without warning. I covered my mouth and rushed to the bathroom, vomiting violently. Watts was so scared that he called 120 immediately. I waved my hand to stop him. "I'm fine." Watts looked angry and distressed. "Emile, why are you trying so hard? Your face is turning pale." I rinsed my mouth and just reached for the half-full cup of milk tea, but Watts ruthlessly snatched it away and said fiercely, "It's iced, you can't drink it." I tried to find an excuse. "It can't be wasted." Watts lowered his head and drank the remaining half cup in one gulp. "Don't waste it." I glared at him and ignored him. Early the next morning, Watts knocked on the door. I was dug out of bed and asked impatiently, "What are you doing so early in the morning?" Watts said nothing, called a car, put me in it, and took me straight to the hospital. Standing at the hospital entrance, I suddenly came to my senses and refused to go in. Watts looked sullen, half holding me and walking inside. "Emile, don't be afraid to see a doctor." My face turned red and I struggled to say, "I'm not sick." "Ramon told me that you vomited every day. Why didn't you tell me?" I turned my head away. "I'm not sick." Watts turned my head back and comforted me. "Emile, no matter what disease you have, I will be with you." I stared at him. The dark circles under his eyes and the bloodshot under his eyes were clearly visible. "It feels like I haven't slept all night." My heart was hit hard. "I'm really not sick." Watts obviously doesn't believe it. I whispered, "I'm just pregnant." "Watts." I added, "The test results are in the dormitory. I can show them to you." The atmosphere suddenly became eerily quiet. After all, no man can get pregnant. I was so angry that he laughed. Without saying a word, he registered for me to see a doctor and get checked out. When the test results came out, Watts looked shocked and touched my belly in disbelief. I slapped his hand away angrily. He came back to his senses as if he had thought of something. His face looked grim and he asked, "Who is the child?" "Your." Watts looked at me suddenly and asked as if to verify, "That night wasn't a dream?" I sneered. "Emile, pinch me." I was ruthless. Watts grimaced in pain. "Hiss, it's not a dream." After a long time, he said solemnly, "I will be responsible for you." After a pause, he asked cautiously, "Do you want to give birth to it? Will giving birth to it have any effect on your body?" I was confused. "I don't know. After all, it is a small life, with a fetal heartbeat and a fully developed body. I couldn't bring myself to take it away, but I wasn't ready for it either." This question bothered me for a long time, until one day I went to the hospital for Down syndrome screening. There are a lot of people in the obstetrics and gynecology department and you have to queue. After settling me down, Watts left temporarily. A pregnant lady with a big belly came over, and I subconsciously stood up and gave her my seat. The pregnant woman smiled and thanked him. I looked at her belly and couldn't help but ask her, "Is it uncomfortable to have such a big belly?" The pregnant woman sighed. "It must be uncomfortable. It's inconvenient to go to the toilet and sleep, and I will also have edema." My face turned pale and I felt how difficult it was to be pregnant for 10 months. Finally, the pregnant woman lowered her head and looked at her belly tenderly. "But it's worth it. My husband and I are looking forward to its birth." I subconsciously touched my belly. Looking forward to it? Sort of. Because I want to know if it's more like me or more like Watts. After the examination, the doctor's words rang in my ears. "Have you made a decision about whether to keep the child?" After leaving the hospital, Watts suddenly said, "Emile, can we not have the baby?" I asked, a little unhappy, "Why?" "It hurts so much." "How do you know?" "I had a trial birth. I had a cesarean section." That hurts and it will leave scars, so why not give birth? Not good. Decided to give birth to the child. Watts asked me to move in with him so that he could take care of me more easily. Every day he studies knowledge about pregnant women, parenting, etc. He was worried all day long, and his eyes were glued to me 24 hours a day, as if the whole world was not safe. As her belly grew bigger, Watts became more and more anxious. It was clearly me who was pregnant, but it seemed like he was the one suffering from the prenatal anxiety. One night, Watts was doing prenatal education for the baby as usual, and at the end he touched my bulging belly. I felt my stomach suddenly move and my eyes widened. Watts' pupils were dilated, and he was very excited. The baby kicked me. Emile, does it hurt? I shook my head. He gently touched the pregnant belly. I pushed him away and said, "Stop touching me. It itches a bit," like a reaction. Watts seemed to have noticed something, and his voice was a little hoarse. "Emile, can I help you?" I said nothing and bit my lower lip. He lowered his head and moved his way down along his abdomen. A fine layer of hot sweat broke out on his body and he couldn't stop shivering. When we were done, Watts cleaned me up and went to the bathroom. I didn't have class the next day, so Watts went to class early in the morning. I vaguely heard some noise outside. I thought it was Watts bringing back food. Went out in slippers. The next second, my eyes met with the visitors. I woke up instantly and hurriedly pulled on my clothes and greeted her. "Hello, Auntie." Watts's mother was stunned for 2 seconds before she smiled and naturally took over the conversation. "Hello, your name is Emile, right?" I was surprised. "Auntie knows me?" Watts' mother nodded and said tentatively, "You and Watts." Thinking of Watts's mother's attitude towards homosexuality, I interrupted her and insisted, "We are just friends. I stayed at his place yesterday." Watts' mother seemed disappointed. "What do you want for lunch?" "Auntie will make it for you." Watts's mother was very enthusiastic. Watts came back and I asked through gritted teeth, "Why didn't you tell me your mom was coming today?" He looked innocent as if he was being wrongly accused. "I didn't know she was coming today." At the dinner table, Watts took good care of me, which made Watts' mother look at him sideways. While Watts's mother was getting up, she served the rice. I pinched Watts and warned him quietly, "Be careful, your mother is still here, don't provoke her." Watts was a little confused and let out an "ah." I felt a little disappointed. "Anyway, don't pick up vegetables, peel shrimps, pick bones, or add soup for me. People should have a sense of boundaries." After dinner, Watts went to wash the dishes, leaving me and Watts' mother. Watts' mother asked, "You and Watts are together, right?" My brain buzzed, I forgot to deny it, and nervously clenched my palms, saying, "Auntie, liking the same sex is not a disease, don't blame him. In fact, 2 men can live well together." Watts' mother's eyes seemed a little red. After I finished speaking, she said, "Thank you." I was stunned. "I thought you two wouldn't be together." Watts told me that he fell in love with a very good and excellent person, but that person is straight, and he applied to T University for him. He doesn't want to be together, just be friends. My heart was beating wildly and I stared at Watts in the kitchen. Watts' mother wiped the tears from her eyes and said, "Sending him to school was the biggest mistake I have ever made in my life. Thank you for saving him." On the way back after sending Watts's mom off, I asked Watts, "If there hadn't been that accident and I had gotten married and had children naturally, what would you have done?" Watts was silent for a moment. "I'll be your best man, at least we'll be on the same stage together." "Are you stupid?" My eyes felt a little hot and I turned my head away. "If I bend straight, I'll be struck by lightning. This road is too difficult to walk, I can't bear to give it up. Let's go together." I held his hand. Watts shook my hand back. "Have you found the person who drugged you last time?" "I got a beating."